Hello, Mike Matthews, physical therapist here with the PT411. Thanks for joining me. If you already haven't done so, make sure you're following me on Facebook and on Instagram. Definitely make sure you're subscribing on YouTube so you can be notified when I come out with future videos. So the last several videos we've been talking about basics with knee health. Today we're going to be talking about the hamstrings. I've already touched up on the hamstrings in the previous video. We were looking at general health for the pelvis and the lower back, so we were focusing more on hamstring flexibility. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you head on over to YouTube, check out that video now. But today we're going to see why it's so important for the knees, for that hamstrings to be nice and healthy. So we're going to take a look over here at the whiteboard first. To get fully oriented here, we have our front side and our back side. Here's our patella or our kneecap. Here's our tibia down here, or our shin bone, and up here is our femur or our thigh bone up here. So we have all this area here, and the front is our quad muscle. In the back right here is our hamstring muscle. And this is the one we're talking about here, but to talk about this, first we need to talk about our quad muscle and this ligament right here. One of four very important ligaments in our body, and this one is our ACL. So what happens here is our ACL, under normal circumstances, is going to prevent this tibia from translating going forward this way. So as this quad muscle is contracting and straightening this knee out, the last thing we want to do is for this tibia to actually go forward with that. That's actually kind of difficult to see from this, so I'm going to make that one black actually. So we're trying to prevent this tibia from going forward here. So that ACL right there is going to prevent that forward, that anterior translation there. So we need this hamstring back here, this hamstring, to be nice and strong. So as long as this hamstring is contracting, it's going to pull this tibia in the opposite direction. So now instead of just relying on that ligament, that ACL there, to prevent that forward translation, now we have that hamstring when it's nice and strong to be able to counter that quad whenever it's straightening out that knee as well. This can be from very simple things like going to sit down or to stand up or kicking out that leg, even an athletic application as far as running or jumping or cutting, change of directions very quickly. So as long as this hamstring is nice and strong, it's going to help out that ACL and it's going to keep it nice and healthy. And our quads can be pretty strong. We need those hamstrings to be at a ratio of 3 to 2, which means that the hamstring muscles back here need to be at least 2/3 the strength of the quad muscle up here. If they're not, we lose this benefit, and this ACL is kind of out here on its own trying to protect that knee from translating forward right there. But not only that, when we squat down, a nice strong hamstring keeps our entire body nice and stable. So if we're standing up here and we're taking a look at that hamstring back there, our hip and our knee are both extended right here. So when we're standing up, our knee is extended, so that's actually going to put tension on that hamstring there. But at the same time, our hip is extended, and that's actually going to put slack on that hamstring. And so the opposite happens whenever we bend down and we flex at that knee. It actually puts some release on that hamstring, and with that hip flex, it actually puts tension on that hamstring there. So what this means, with good hamstring strength and control, the hamstring stays under about the same amount of tension so that our entire body stays nice and stable. That same amount of tension that entire time keeps things nice and stable, things nice in alignment. So we're going to highlight 5 hamstring exercises in this video here. So the first one we're going to need is a band. You're going to get a band, you're going to cut it in a loop here. Let me show you here really quick. So I just have a band cut into a loop here, probably at about my shoulder width right here. I have a knot tied on one end here. For the first exercise, we're going to get you laying on the ground. We're going to get this band looped around both feet here. So now I have a loop, well actually looped around one foot. You can loop it around the other foot. You don't necessarily need it to, just crisscrossed around that one to keep it stable on that side. So get you flipped over here onto your stomach. You're going to make sure that I'm in frame here. You're going to keep one leg down, and you're actually going to bend up with the other side, trying to come back this way. Sometimes you might have to put it more behind the ankle here, but I have it secured around my foot, so this is fine. And you're just bending that knee back against that resistance about as far as you can go, and taking it back down. You're gonna work this one about to fatigue. You wanna get about 20 repetitions in on it. If you can't get to 20 repetitions with this, you definitely need to get a lighter band. If you're getting through 30, 40 repetitions and it's way too easy for you, you definitely need to get a heavier band. So the next one here, we're gonna do sitting. And I have the bands situated the same way here. I'm gonna start off with those knees straight again. So now this time I have even more tension on those hamstrings since I'm sitting up and those hips are flexed. So coming up here, knees straight. We're gonna keep one leg straight and we're pulling back with that other side. Coming back, same thing, get a good squeeze out of it. You want to get about 20 repetitions per set. So if you're having difficulty with this one or even the other one with stabilizing this with the other leg, you can always have somebody else hold it or you can tie it to something else. So I could have this band here, somebody over here holding it, and I'm pushing against them this way, or when I'm laying down, somebody can hold it for me as I'm coming back as well. So for the next one, we're going to get out the stability ball. So we're the stability ball hamstring curls. We're going to lay on our back, our feet propped up here on the ball. Make sure I'm still in frame here. First thing we're going to do here, raise up our hips. While those hips are raised up, we're just going to curl. We're going to curl that ball back, roll it back towards our butt. So we're going to curl back this way and back straight right here. Big thing is, keep your hips off the ground. You want to keep them as straight as possible. Now, if these are very difficult for you, you can keep your hips lower to the ground, still keep them off the ground as you come back. But as they get easier this way, you're going to want to keep those hips nice and straight as you come back here. Same thing, working at about sets of 20 at a time. Definitely try to keep them as challenging as possible for you. But again, if they're too difficult this way, keep those hips a little closer towards the ground. Make it a little easier on you to start off with. So if those are getting pretty easy for you, we definitely would need to make them a little bit more difficult again. So we're going to keep one foot off the ball. I don't care if you keep it bent up here, if you keep it raised up here off the ball, it doesn't matter. But we're going to bridge up again. We're going to do those curls again, right here with that one leg. Not only are we working the hamstrings this time, we are also working more of a stability factor there. And you'll see that my leg is wiggling a little bit here. So now I'm using extra muscles to complement that hamstring. Same thing, try to work your way up to about 20 at a time on each side. This one's going to be way more difficult than the one leg. So if you're having to start off with a much lower number, but the hamstrings curls with the both legs are pretty easy, definitely still go up to those ones and work your way up to that 20 right there. So another hamstring strengthening exercise, we're going to need some hand weights. We're going to need some dumbbells or a barbell. So on this one, we definitely have to practice good bending mechanics. I did an entire video just on that, on how to protect the back when bending, especially if we're lifting up objects. So make sure if you haven't seen that one, go ahead and see that one now, because I'm not going to go in as much detail here. So I have my weights down here, and again, I have a barbell here, but you can use a dumbbell. You can use hand weights. You don't have to use this weight right here. The big thing is we're hinging at those hips right here, and where you're keeping your back nice and straight, nice in a neutral position, arched even. So that nice neutral arch here, you have to keep that the entire time to both protect that back and to work those hamstrings, because if we're bending at the back here, we're getting no work out of our hamstrings. We're overworking these back muscles, and it's not very good for those discs or those vertebrae. So I'm going to bend forward here, and you'll notice if I'm doing this correctly, my hamstrings are kind of tight. My knees will have to bend to keep that back straight, which is okay to bend those knees some here. So I'm going to grab on here, keeping that back straight. I'm just going to lift up, let those knees straighten out. All reps after this one, I'm keeping those knees straight. I'm just going down to find that stretch in those hamstrings and back up. Go down to find that stretch in those hamstrings and back up. And again, I'm keeping that back nice and arched, nice and in that neutral position there. So it'll take a little bit closer look at what my back is doing in this position. Nice and arched as I come down and back up. Going down until my knees start to bend, stopping and coming back up. If you're doing this one correctly, You should feel that stretch in that hamstring as you get to your limit at the bottom before you come back up. And if you do this one correctly, I guarantee that you will get those hamstrings burning. So this last one that we're gonna do is gonna be pretty difficult. It's gonna be a pretty advanced exercise for those of you who are wanting something a little bit more difficult than this. I'm talking more about our athletes, our people that are in better shape, that aren't finding a lot of challenge in the ones that we have been doing so far. But I definitely do not encourage this as a beginning or even an intermediate exercise. This is definitely an advanced exercise, so please do not try it unless you feel like you are up to it. And everything that I've shown you so far is very simple. And it's going to take a little bit more of a setup here to pull this one off. And most of the time it's going to take quite a bit of creativity to set this up with what you have. I know some gyms, some equipment is available to make this easy on you, but it's not available in all gyms. Not everybody has a gym membership, but a lot of people have a lot of stuff laying around their home gyms where they can do this one as well. The first thing you need is something to pad those knees. I want to save those kneecaps here. We need to save those big time. We need something to pad those here. So I've got my Bosu here. If you have some really thick foam, you can use that as well. I'm going to have my knees up here in a second. The other thing, I need to be able to hook the back of my ankles around something. So I have my weight bench here. I have a considerable amount of weight up here. I'm gonna hook my legs underneath the frame of my bench right here. And I have this nice and padded as well. So like I said, you're gonna have to be a little creative here. You can also have a friend hold those ankles down too, but they're gonna have to put a considerable amount of weight through your ankles there. They have to do this to counterbalance you through this exercise. So I'm gonna get set up here. A lot of people will have to bend forward a little bit at their hips, but keeping their back nice and arched again here. Keeping that back nice and arched, but with your hips forward a little bit is actually going to give you a pretty good anchor point for those hamstrings to actually be able to work in this position. Here, you're just going to lower yourself down as slowly as you can, as far as you can, until you have to get those fingers to assist you on your way down. Same thing on the way back up. You might have to give yourself a little bit extra push. And I've seen big variability in the clinic of how well people are able to do this. I've seen people who haven't had to use their hands until they're just about to the ground and they're barely pushing themselves up. And they're barely pushing themselves off to help. And they're barely pushing themselves up to help kickstart coming back up. I've seen people who have had to considerably use their hands almost all the way down and almost all the way back up. And I've seen everything in between. You want to start off with this nice and slow. Don't get too aggressive. Use those hands quite a bit until you get a good feel for it, and then slowly take away the assistance of those arms. So that's it. Those are the 5 exercises that we're going to be going over. We have 4 beginning exercises and 1 advanced exercise to work on that hamstring strength right there. We need to protect this very important joint, and we need to protect these very important ligaments that support that joint. And the big thing that we can do is focus on those muscles, the control and the strength of those muscles, and start investing in the future of our health. Again, I'm Mike Matthews with the Physical Therapy 411. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for joining me.